So yesterday I was listening to Jim, or Mr. Medica, as I'm sure some of you will know him by, and he was talking about a professor from the Bronx who he knew who started this organization. And he was a hippie from the 60s, and the pressure coming on them at the time was very conservative. And they were protesting on campuses for free speech. But when they finally got into positions of power, when they became the teachers, the professors, and the deans, it wasn't free speech they were advocating for, it was their speech. They just became the conservators they were denouncing. They just swung the pendulum in the other direction. Now, something that the left does that the right does not. The left will notice a weakness, notice a door is open, unlocked, move in, cement its position, and attempt to wall off the entry point, in this case free speech. Basic authoritarian building 101, stifle dissent. Because they're smart enough to recognize what they use to get in can also be used to get them out. Sort of the variation that revolutionaries will do once they get into power. They'll kill off a whole load of people that aided the revolution because they realize they're a potential threat to the new regime. This is why I made the case that you can't have free speech absolutism. It is a fantasy position based on utopian idealism of a benevolent society, but it doesn't work in the real world. Now, something that the right fails to do is defend their positions because they have this strange aversion to exercising power in a similar manner, especially through the state. Very much a modern right kind of mindset. And I can't figure out why, considering, say, their proclivity for firearms. They can recognize that that is not black and white. It can be used for both defense and attack based on the circumstances. But power is viewed in this black and white manner. And this is something about the modern right that drives me insane, is that defenselessness mentality they have about their concepts. That something that works, especially that it's been a staple for so long, it can be left to its own devices and can stand on its own without protection. Almost as if the idea can become sovereign, therefore will not be encroached upon. Which is not how warfare works. Ideas need its own rigorous defensive capability if they're going to withstand any kind of an attack. You need to defend them from a position of strength, especially if you're aiming like the West does for this inclusivity model. Because if you're going to invite everyone to participate in this thing, you need some mechanism of exercising exclusivity, otherwise you're inviting an enemy through the gate. Now, the way I see it is this is based on a quote from Ayn Rand. You don't defeat an evil by adopting it and practicing it. You defeat it by spreading the right message. Now, there's two issues with that statement. It's not wrong, but it's not sufficient. The idea of spreading the right message seems to me to be based on this concept of the marketplace of ideas, that the best ideas will win, which is ludicrously reductionist. It's also not true. It's this notion that society as a collective is full of rational actors that have the capacity to reason well. Again, this is not true. Calvin Fritsch has this quote: "The ant is a collectively intelligent and individually stupid animal. Man is the opposite." Which is true. Human societies are not organized bottom-up, it's top-down. As a mass, it's not moved via rationality and cold logic. It does not appeal to the human soul, especially nowadays when everyone seems to be so divorced from common sense and reality. People are moved by goals and ideas that are so hopelessly idealistic and romantic just to feel like they're part of something. I mean, look at our current society. The left has power. Are their ideas correct? No, it's tearing society apart at the seams. So how are they in positions of authority? Look at the last century. The Germans were this highly evolved powerhouse of a nation, yet they managed to slip into fascism pretty quickly once the opportunity reared its head for the Nazis. I mean, look at Jordan Peterson when he speaks against the postmodernists. He says in their worldview there's nothing but power. Well, that's a half-truth. Power is not the only factor. There's also competence. However, power remains the primary driver. It's your fuel. You can have a strong vehicle, yes, but you need an energy to move it. In our society, it flows through three avenues: prestige, influence, strength. Education, media, politics. Control these, you control society. This is why Mulbuck said, well, tongue-in-cheek mind you, that the best way to combat this threat is to drive a tank through Harvard Yard. That is one way to get rid of college debt, I suppose. No harm in trying. The other one is this subjectivity of adopting an evil and practicing it. And this goes back to the firearm comparison. It is capable of killing, yes, which I suppose many would consider immoral. But then we have to ask, what did it kill and why? If it's an intruder or someone that wishes to do one harm, it's no longer immoral. Now it's this life-saving weapon of righteousness. So let me ask you all a question. If you look at free speech, for example, what is the so-called evil practiced in restricting speech? Is it that someone's free speech was violated at all? Is it the forbidding of certain topics? Or is it merely the mechanism responsible for doing so? Like I said before, if you run a liberal-esque sort of society with something like free speech, why would you offer, say, a communist a chance to spread their ideas? If one of the only functions of the state is to protect the citizenry, give me a moral argument for why this person should be allowed to speak. Why would you give someone else the chance to foment rage using antiquated ideas that led to nothing but rampaging death and misery? You're sacrificing rationality and your own survival for utopian idealism to someone who has zero intention of being receptive to courtesy. It's not reciprocal, so it's nothing short of stupidity. Why are we stopping this person from talking? They're a communist. They were spreading propaganda. All right, fair enough, says a man whilst wearing a t-shirt that says Pinochet did nothing wrong. What's a right censoring apparatus? Well, we don't need one. We're smarter. We have better ideas. Our mechanism is self-taught and self-regulated. But that's a value. That's a tool that one must be instructed on how to wield efficiently. This is typically done by family and having some manners, maybe the church. But again, it's not regulated by an external body. So as far as who regulates it then? If I had the answer to that question, I wouldn't be doing this video. It will be the never-ending tussle of all of human civilization, which can ultimately be summed up in one sentence. How do you get the right people with the right ideas that can maintain a flourishing order? But another thing that pissed me off about this, and the left are notorious for doing this, which is not a surprise, it's the bedrock of their ideology, the fixing of historical injustices, so to speak, by granting more power to the state, because they're illiterate imbeciles. But anyway, look at what those who came up during the 60s did. Like the professor said, they did exactly the same as those who oppose them. They were no different whatsoever, because they're authoritarian maniacs. There's no principle in these people. No, they just want raw power. And by the way, that goes for the whole of the left. Leftism is inherently authoritarian. It's a purely hellish ideology. But what annoys me the most is if you take, for example, say, a slave that became a slave owner. This blows their mind. And you'll hear this faux outcry of, oh, how could they do that? If I was... Shut the hell up, you wouldn't do shit, you morally prancing tough. This is what they did. No one is endorsing it, merely pointing out this was the norm for the time. And you would do the same damn thing. Who the hell do you think you are? You don't even have ideas of morality of your own that you can claim. Professors taught you that crap. You're a sponge. If I grabbed you by the neck and wrung you out, you would turn into this empty husk of a human devoid of any life whatsoever. It just amazes me how they expect these people to behave completely differently from everyone else around them when they themselves don't even do that now. But they think they'd be the morally upstanding person in significantly more difficult circumstances. Like, get the hell out of here. Oh, no. Do you know who the left think they would be? Every leftist think they'd be this guy. They get the hell out of here. No, you wouldn't. Considering your enthusiasm for collectivism, you would not only be the one hailing the Führer with glowing eyes, you'd be one of his most vocal bloody supporters. And that is all for today. I will see you all next time.